Hi, I'm Grant Nelson. This is my dog Bailey here to my left, and welcome to Mustache Off-Grid. Woo! Hi guys, Grant Nelson again here with the Mustache Off-Grid YouTube channel. In case you're new to the channel, I cover various off-grid and homesteading topics. I live off-grid in southern Missouri in a one-room cabin. So I'm just going to get right into the topics today here, guys. So this weekend, I did some squirrel hunting with my friend Adam. He came down here. He lives out in Little Rock, and he came out here to visit. And we did some squirrel hunting this week. And usually throughout the week, when I'm working on things or doing things around the homestead, I'm able to come up with a topic. And I was having trouble coming up with a good topic. And I said, well, you know, I could talk about squirrel hunting. That's pretty relevant. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about squirrel hunting today. Just some basics for someone that's a beginner. I'm no expert squirrel hunter, but I have shot a few squirrels in my day. So first thing you're going to want to know about squirrel hunting is you've got two types of squirrel. You've got gray squirrel and you've got red squirrel. The red squirrel are usually a lot bigger. You'll usually see a lot more of the gray squirrels, I find. They're a little bit smaller. They're both, you know, perfectly acceptable to eat. Depending on where you're at, the red squirrels, the big old red squirrels, can be a little bit tougher, but they both cook up real well and they're real good tasting. Proper firearm to use for squirrels. I would say a 22 rifle is pretty good. This is one that I have here. It's a Winchester 22 long rifle, model 190. So this is the one I have. Now, if you got a gun like this, or any gun, it's important to take care of your firearm. They make a lot of different oils that you can use to clean them up. I tend to use this Rem oil. They sell it at Walmart. It's pretty decent. And just like a wash rag. So I'm actually going to do that here on the video a little bit because I had a little bit of rust on my 22 and I felt like it'd be reasonable to try to clean it off, clean it up a little bit. But you kind of just put it on the wherever there's rust. And this stuff will help you get the rust off. If you get a spot that has rust that won't come off from the just the Rem oil, you can get yourself like a copper scourge or maybe some fine grit sandpaper, and that'll help a little bit. If you get your firearm rusty and there's a spot that, you know, it's kind of just creating an issue, then you can do copper scourge and kind of clean it up like I was just saying there. It's probably one of the first things you should do if you're deciding that you want to get into hunting is learn a little bit about your firearm. I would say probably taking it apart a few times and putting it back together is probably a good practice. That way you know all the parts. And you can take the parts apart and clean them as well, which I'll probably end up doing on this sometime after this video, actually. I don't think I'm going to take it apart for the video here. But that looks pretty shiny. I should have probably got a close-up for you guys, but you get the point. Take care of your firearms, maintain your firearms. You know, if you're going to go squirrel hunting, this is a 22 long rifle. I'm going to get one of the way that it works here with this one, it's got a little spot here that you put the bullets into. You slide this thing in here once you put your bullets in, and then you close it. You pull this back to put one in the chamber, and then you turn your fire on. This is the safety. You'll put it on fire, and then you can shoot around when a squirrel comes around. Some people like to use a shotgun as well. You can use any shotgun. 20 gauge or a 410 shotgun is probably the best option for squirrel hunting. But I've used my 12 gauge a few times. I do think a 12 gauge is a pretty handy 12 gauge or any shotgun is a pretty handy thing to have. If you're homesteading, it's a good first firearm along with maybe a 22. If you get yourself a slug barrel and a shot shell barrel, rabbit barrel some people call it, shot shells spread when you shoot them, and slugs are a slug barrel, as they call it, has a aimer on it, so it's more like a 22, where you could shoot a little bit more of a distance with it. And when you're using the rabbit barrel, it's a spread shot. It's more for close range, small game. And as far as it goes, you kind of just put the bead on it. You don't have to really aim it much. You just kind of got to aim it generally in the direction a little bit, would be the way I would put it. So if something's running, you kind of aim ahead of it, and then it'll spread, so you have a better chance of hitting it. So that's the difference between a slug barrel and a shot shell barrel, or a rabbit barrel as I like to call them. I probably could have brought my shotgun down here for the video, but if you guys want to look it up online, it's an 870 12 gauge Remington Wingmaster is what I have. It's a pump shotgun. So anyway, just figured I'd mention that if any of you guys want to look it up online and see what it looks like. And you can get a slug barrel and a rabbit barrel for it, so you have both options for hunting small game, and you can hunt deer with it with the slug barrel. So as far as it goes, talking about getting back into the squirrels here, some people like to hunt squirrel with a squirrel dog. I don't have a squirrel dog, so I don't really hunt them with a dog. A lot of times when you're out in the woods, you'll get a squirrel and you see it go into the tree, and it's inside of the tree, and you can't get it to come out of the tree. There's a thing called a squirrel whistle they make that some people use that can somehow trigger the squirrel to come out of the tree. I haven't got one yet. I haven't needed one, but I'm thinking about getting one to try it out for some of the next times that I squirrel hunt. Bailey, get out of there. Come on. Sorry, guys. My dog's messing around back there. Come on. Get out of there. But anyway, squirrel whistle might be something to look into. There's a great podcast series called the Meat Eater Podcast, and there's a guy named Steve Ranella that does that, and he has a pretty good squirrel hunting, some pretty good squirrel hunting videos to watch. I'm probably going to put out some squirrel hunting videos this week, just some clips and things of the hunt of me and Adam hunting. But anyway, squirrel whistle is something to consider. If you like hunting with a dog, a squirrel dog might be kind of a fun thing to try if you have the financial capacity, or if you know how to train a squirrel dog. I don't. As far as it goes with squirrel, you can walk around the woods with a shotgun and try to, get squirrels. But I find, and what I've heard from kind of the expert squirrel hunters that I've read about online and things like that, is it's good to kind of sit in a spot for 45 minutes, a spot that you think has squirrels. Sometimes you'll see their nest up in the trees, and that's generally a good indicator that there might be squirrels around. You might find acorns, shells on the ground, just the shells, on like a log or something. That's generally a good sign. The squirrels like to run along the top of down logs on the ground. Sometimes they run along the ground, sometimes they jump from tree to tree. The squirrel nest in the tree are called a dray, D-R-A-Y. I think Adam told me that this week it's called a dray. I always have just called them squirrel nest. But if you see squirrel nest, that's probably a good spot to stop, wait a little while, see if you get a squirrel. Don't move much, just kind of stay in one spot for 45 minutes to an hour. If you don't see any squirrels, move along to the next spot and, wait there 45 minutes to an hour. And, just keep that consistently as you go throughout the woods, and you'll probably have luck and see some squirrels at some point. It takes a little while once you go out there for the squirrels to kind of calm down. When you first go out there, you'll notice usually they're kind of dead in the spot that you went. And they may be super active after you sit there for a half hour, and they kind of don't really realize you're there anymore. It's kind of like they have a short-term attention span in that aspect. So anyway, that's kind of some of the strategies. You could walk through the woods with a shotgun you know, see if they pop out and try to get them. Always make sure, you know, you're being safe. Don't shoot towards the road, you know, different things like that. Don't shoot towards houses, things like that. Make sure you're far off the beaten path if you're squirrel hunting, and you're in a safe area to do it. What else was I gonna say about the squirrel? Let's see here. So that's some of the ways to hunt them. Kind of sit in the spot for a while, then move along, sit in the spot for a while. That's generally how most hunting is. It's a lot of sitting and waiting for the animal to cross your path. And when they do, that's the time that you get to harvest your meat. Adam said that he thinks that hunting barefoot is, you know, that you're quieter if you want to sneak up on a squirrel. You know, we didn't hunt barefoot, and generally we don't, but it's just something to think about, you know, if you're in a spot where you can do it. Out here it's pretty rocky and there's a lot of brambles and briars and things, but kind of an interesting thought. Let me know in the comments below how crazy you think that is, or what your guys' opinions are on hunting barefoot. Kind of funny. Anyway, I have a couple different perspectives on squirrels that aren't scientific, but they're kind of an opinion from my observation. One thing I believe is that the squirrels, when they eat black walnuts, I believe it worms them and kills all the internal parasites when they're in an area that has a lot of black walnuts. And I rarely ever see unhealthy squirrels. They're generally always healthy and strong, and they're running around fast. And I kind of have an unscientific hypothesis that they eat all the black walnuts and it kills all parasites and diseases that, you know, come to squirrels. Because the black walnut is an anti-parasite in small doses, and the squirrels eat the black walnuts. So I kind of have an unscientific hypothesis that it worms and kills parasites in the squirrels. I also have an unscientific opinion on squirrels, that I believe that when they rustle the leaves and when you hear them knocking in the trees, generally they're cracking nuts probably. I believe that sometimes they're using that as a communication to let the other squirrels know that there's one of them somewhere else. And the reason I come to that conclusion is because I'll see a single squirrel and it's out in the leaves and it's making all kinds of noise. And when that happens, generally another squirrel shows up. And, you know, that's a completely unscientific, but, you know, I find that tends to usually be the case. When I hear a loud squirrel, I usually see or hear another loud squirrel. It's usually not just a singular one. Of course, they're breeding and things like that. It may have something to do with that, and they may be making that noise for mating purposes or something like that, but I just believe sometimes they may communicate with those sounds. They do make a certain sound in the wild, but they do use it for communication, but I also think that they might use the rustling of the leaves and loud noises like that to communicate a little bit somehow. You know, just from observation, I've kind of came to that conclusion. May sound a little crazy, but it's just an opinion. Like I said, it's a conspiracy theory. So, let's see, what else I got written here on squirrels. Oh, if you do go out squirrel hunting, you can save your squirrel tails. You keep them straight and you salt the ends. And you can send them to MEP Spinners, the fishing lure maker, MEPS. They make spinners. And you can mail them the MEPS, and they will give you spinners for your squirrel tails, or they'll give you whatever the market price is on them. I think I looked online earlier, and it was like 15 cents a tail. But they'll give you the spinners instead, which is a lot more value generally. You know, the spinners cost more than 15 cents. So if you send them squirrel tails, they use them for their little spinner fishing lures. You can actually mail them the MEPS and they'll buy them from you, the tails. Also about squirrels, generally they really like hickory nuts. If you can find a hickory tree, good hickory tree that's dropping a lot of nuts, early in the season, that's a pretty good time to get them. Then they kind of tend to go to the black walnuts, and then eventually they go to the acorns. And they'll eat all of them when they're falling, but they generally don't correlate with each other than maybe the acorns a little bit with the black walnut season. The squirrels prefer the white oak acorns over the red oak acorns, and the deer actually prefer the white oak acorns as well. They'll eat both, but they prefer white oak. So if you're ever in the woods and you can determine where there's a white oak tree in a forest full of red oaks, that's generally a good spot to see some squirrels or even some deer, generally, because they prefer the taste of the white oak acorns. They're a little bit more mild. The red oaks have more tannins. Okay, so that's everything I got on squirrel hunting. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about cooking on the fire. Me and Adam, we shot a couple squirrels this weekend, and we cooked it on the fire on a skewer, you know, a wooden skewer. I might have a little clip I can put in here in the video, I might not, but basically you want to get yourself a stick and make a skewer. We've got a squirrel here from the hunt we're going to cook on the fire. There's Adam. That's his squirrel. Alright, so we got the squirrel on the skewer. Basically we sharpened a stick. I like to use hickory. And we put the squirrel on there. Basically you just take a stick. After you skin your squirrel, gut your squirrel, and you poke it through the squirrel, and you can cook it right on the open fire with some seasoning, and it's generally delicious. I find that any piece of meat cooked on the open fire like that is flame broiled. It's generally delicious. Venison especially. I love taking a chunk of deer after I shot it and cooking it on the open fire like that. It just tastes so good. It tastes like a flame broiled steak. It's just a wonderful thing, but just figured I'd mention that as a cooking method. If you've never tried it with wild game, I've tried it with trout and different fish, squirrel, rabbits, venison, different things like that. Something to try out sometime if you're out on a hunt or something like that, and you get to a place where you got some animals and you have a campfire and you're camping out, it might be something to try for you. Another thing that I'd say about it is there's a lot of public land out there, and some of the public land is kind of tough to deer hunt, and there's a lot of some places there's a lot more competition for rifle season and things like that, but squirrel have such a long season. And generally speaking, there's a lot of action with squirrel hunting. You always see some squirrels, generally speaking. They're all over the place, and they don't have a lot of predators other than us. So that being said, you know, if you don't have a place to hunt, public land is a really good option for squirrel hunting. You know, and it's a good place to start out hunting too. If you are new to hunting, squirrel hunting may be a good place to start, because a deer might be a little too big, or maybe it's just you know, you're just not used to it. Squirrel hunting may be something to try first. Just the thought there for a beginning hunter. But anyway, I'm going to get into the cooking part of the video. If you're cooking on the fire off grid, metal pots like this, stainless steel pots with a lid, you know, you can generally get them for like $10 to $20 at Walmart or different places. I have about 5 or 6 of those, and I've mentioned it in other videos, but that is a very handy thing. You can make soups in them, stews, render fat from different animals. I've done it from coons. I've done it from, I've made beef tallow with them. Eventually I'll do it with pork fat from my pig. But they're great for rendering stuff down. I also boil my traps for trapping season in them to get all the oils and scents of human scent off the traps for coyote trapping. You can boil them with like black walnuts or leaves or something like that, and it'll add that earth scent to them. So that's just something I figured I'd mention. If you're cooking on the open fire, something like that is a good option. It's going to turn black and it's going to have some charcoal on it, but you can clean it if you want. I don't really clean mine other than the inside. The inside's the most important part because that's where the food is and the handles. So another thing that you might want to consider is cast iron. This is a Dutch oven, and this is a, oh boy, heavy-handed here. Okay, guys. All right, we're back. So this is a Dutch oven, and this is a Lodge frying pan, skillet, I guess they call it. And I have this cast iron lid. It's interchangeable between the two. If you're cooking on the open fire, this is not a requirement for off-grid living by any means. You know, like I talked about the skewer that you can use just from a stick in the woods. You can cook a lot of different ways. I mean, the ancient peoples, you know, cooked on rocks and things like that, hot rocks in a fire. So generally speaking though, with cast iron, this copper scourge that I use to clean my gun, you can use a copper scourge just like this to clean your cast iron. You don't really want to wash them with soap. There's some cast iron people that will tell you to wash them with soap. The old timers back in the 1800s did not wash them with soap. They mostly used like a lye soap. Lye is actually made from wood ash in the fire. And I often, or I have anyway, not often, but every once in a while I'll wash my cast iron with wood ash and a scourge like this. And it works very good to clean it. If you get a lot of kind of particles in there from cooking that are kind of sticking to the pan, which is rare. I like to season them with lard. That's what they used to do back in the day, is kind of lard or beef tallow used to be kind of the standby for keeping your cast iron pans in good condition. But like I said, you just wash them with water and you kind of sand them or scourge them out. You can use wood ash as well as an option. And you can leave your fat in them and recook with the same fat. It's actually good for the pan to leave the fat in them, so they actually need to be cleaned a lot less than a regular pan. And also the thing about these is they're durable. 100 years from now, my grandkids will probably have these same cast iron pans if I have grandkids. You know, so anyway, cast iron's something to think about if you're going off grid. You know, getting a couple cheap pieces of cast iron to use on the fire is just kind of a wonderful thing. I don't worry about cleaning the outside too much. I more worry about cleaning the inside of the cast iron. Like I said, you season it with lard. I cook with lard in them, and it makes a nice non-stick surface eventually. They say it creates some sort of polymer, I think it's called, polymerization or something like that. And it creates like a non-stick surface as the oil cooks kind of and seeps into the cast iron. It kind of absorbs it. And they call it seasoning the cast iron. If you put the lard on it and salt, and you kind of bake it in your oven, is one of the ways that they do it. But I generally just cook with lard, and eventually it's seasoned, and it has that non-stick surface. So something to think about if you're going off grid is getting some cast iron. It's not a requirement, but it is something that makes life enjoyable. You'll never have to buy another pan or pot again. These are the only two pieces of cooking ware that I use. Other than these stainless steel pots, so generally I usually cook in the pan. Once in a while I'll cook in this skillet. They can be used right on the open campfire where other pans will break down, and these things will last 100 years. They're just cast iron. I like the Lodge brand is what I use. They've been around over 100 years, and they're all American made. So anyway, just figured I'd mention some things about fire cooking for the video. I might have a short video clip that I add in this about it. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do that, but anyway, that's all I have on campfire cooking. Just some basic tips and thoughts on cookware for off-grid living. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and God bless. Ready, boy? You ready, Bailey? Sit. Sit. Nice catch. Nice catch. All right, Bailey. Sit. Did you get it? I thought you swallowed that in one bite. All right, you ready, boy? Sit. Sit. Bailey, sit. Come on. Sit. 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 Oh, not a good catch. All right, boy. Good boy. Good boy. Yes, look at this guy.